welcome to our issue 69 virtual reading for HFR. It's so wonderful to be with all of you tonight. We can't thank you enough for sharing this space with us. Yeah, it's wonderful to have all of you here. I am Rachel Rear. I'm the managing editor at Hayden's Ferry Review. And we're so thrilled to be hosting this virtual reading to celebrate issue 69, which will be out in the world and into people's hands very soon, I believe next week. So yeah, we're so glad that you're celebrating that with us. It's such a wonderful issue with so many wonderful pieces in it. We're going to be really spoiled tonight and hear from 4 of our incredible contributors, each of whom will be introduced by one of our genre editors. Other things, please utilize the chat. We would love if you went crazy in the chat. Throw some lines you love or moments you love in there so we can hype up our readers. Our transcript function is on, so if you'd like to utilize that, you should be able to. And we are recording the event, so if you'd like to go back and watch it or send it to all your friends, it will be up, I believe, on YouTube sometime this week. So those are all of our logistical things. Yeah, thank you all for coming. I know I've said that a million times, but we're really excited about this. It's a great issue. We'll have some pre-order links where you can purchase the issue in the chat throughout the night. And I am going to turn it over to our first introducer, Christy Louie.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, everybody. My name is Christy Louie. I'm the fiction editor here at Hayden's Ferry Review, and I have the pleasure of introducing Melissa Beneche, who is our first reader today. Melissa Beneche is a Haitian-American writer. She holds a BA in creative writing from Florida State University and an MFA in fiction from Syracuse University. She is a runner-up for the Cecilia Joyce Johnson Emerging Writer Award and has been awarded residencies from the Atlantic Center for the Arts, the UCross Foundation, and Tin House. Her work appears or is forthcoming in Bennington Review, Hayden's Ferry Review, and Smoke Long Quarterly. She lives, writes, and teaches stories in South Florida. Welcome, Melissa. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Christy, for that intro, and thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I'm so thrilled, so grateful, and honored to share space with such wonderful writers. I had the honor also of being in a residency a few weeks ago in Wyoming, and I wrote a lot of shorts, which were not planned, but that's okay. So I thought I'd share one tonight. This is called Tombe, and all you need to know about the title is that it is a Haitian word meaning fall, to fall, the action. Tombe. During car rides in Miami, anticipating a turn, my younger sisters and I would lower our windows, unbuckle our seatbelts, and lean forward in our seats in the back, seeing the road curve ahead of us. The green buttonwood would whip past our heads, Mama's open makeup bag would rock on the dashboard, and Mimi's wide tumbler of whiskey or gin and our toys would jiggle on the console between the 2 front seats. The curve would rush upon us, and my sisters and I would all shout, "Tombe!" We'd shout in delight. Mama would moan spills. Her makeup bag, small and light, would tumble off the dashboard, spewing her cosmetics. And Mimi's tumbler would sometimes spill her spirits and perfume us in buttery fumes. My siblings and our dolls and I would crush against one another, falling as one on one door or the other. We loved acting out every exceptional flight that had ever hoped to land well. Every 4 years, we would become Olympic figure skaters. The year of Hurricane Andrew, we were roadkill. The year after taking the exit 14 for home, we became the loud private plane that had flown out of the business airport near our house and crashed. Unlike them, we welcomed our fall. And when the curve released us, we'd bask in its sweet aftertaste, the nip of losing ourselves to that greater centripetal force. Then we'd right ourselves and yell, "Again!" raise our windows for rain, sit back if mama called out siren, waiting unnoticed for the danger to pass. Sometimes Mimi would pedal with heavier feet, and the curb would catch her off, and the wind would snatch a baseball cap off our heads or a comic book out of our grasp, right out the window, and our treasure would flap above our sunroof and the traffic, and if it hit the windshield behind us, Mimi's foot would stay pressing. Leaving summer camp one year, my sister lost a thick-ass fist chapter book to I-95. Our mother, mid-constructing her face, impaled her eye with her mascara wand. My other sister broke her nose, slamming into the back of Mama's seat. Mama turned around to us, tears rolling down the one side of her made-up face, arm blocking the space so Mimi couldn't reach back, and asked us what could have been wrong with our mother that she could not drive without endangering her family, like she was in hate with us and not in love. And my sisters and I sat back quiet, wiping one another's blotched faces, tilting the bloodied one's face up and telling her to hang on, her face would look so pretty again. We discovered the drink in the tumbler was an evil. The year Mama got her license, Mimi cut the TV cord with pliers during my favorite show. The year Mimi peed herself, merging from State Road 7 to East Sunrise Boulevard. Mama left for the woman she believed she should have married. We'd live with them the most, find the stepmother swell. My sisters and I would get rides from her and from others. Mimi would still try to coach our driving. You know you're allowed to go up to 15 over the speed limit, she'd say. But after the youngest of us finished high school, Mimi moved back to Port-au-Prince to care for her parents the way she had never expected or wanted her daughters to care for her, placing the car on a cargo ship so the car would be waiting for her in Port-au-Prince. Maybe because she feared I hated her for the cord cutting, or I feared she hated the mama in me. Mimi told me these things. In college, her videos would vibrate my phone every week. Long talks on WhatsApp about growing up with hate for parents and all brothers and knowing no better trait to impart to us than recklessness, Mama's word for her behavior. Mimi didn't dispute, though Mimi would call it freedom. More the freedom for us Haitian girls to be, however we felt like being. That wasn't her teaching you all freedom, Mama said. That was her letting you know that blood or not, it was her way or may the highway eat you. She never told us if she faulted us more for making a game of the drinking or Mimi more for encouraging it. Each visit to Port-au-Prince, Mimi grew more nostalgic. Tombe, she would yell whenever she'd pick us up at Toussaint Louverture Airport, waving through the crowd of onlookers, swaying a tumbler of what we'd discover was green matcha tea. The roads in Port-au-Prince would slow her. They were cracked and potholed and dangerous for high speeds even when rain slipped them. So Mimi would drive holding the tumbler between her thighs. The tea would give her some of her old prisons back. Sometimes they scared us into taking the wheel. You remember, she'd ask. One of us might have started the game, but we didn't remember which one, nor did we care. We had our own lovers to nurture. We had kids to try our Haitian on. We would discover our own tendencies to disconnect from our chosen loves, grow our own upset when our kids didn't grow into our best friends like we'd hoped. Some years we did not visit Mimi, our own tongues became dull feet pressing the meaning out of Haitian words. We'd forget whole phrases. You don't remember? She'd ask in front of her parents, our Haitian grandparents, who had refused to acknowledge Mimi when Mimi and Mama were together, whose aged eyes blindness misted, both of them, and made their hands grip door jambs and grip our own hands with a sort of rough familiarity, like they had seen us every day of our lives, though they of course had not. I discovered their silence had been a pickaxe chipping in Mimi's breast. I would share Mimi's confessions with my sisters, and we'd grow yet more impatient on any reminders of childhood, as though our mother meant to shackle us to her past abandonments as well as our own, as though the best of us had been instead of were now being and would be. Through the years, my sisters and I would always live in different states. And I don't know why, a car flying by us some afternoon would prompt one of us to text the other two. There goes a Mimi looking to get wrecked. Only sometimes in Mimi's last years, when the note of a good flying day into Haiti, or the bud of our baby's new baby, or a new hobby, or just the grace of a trafficless road, or the vestiges of alcohol continuing their withering work on Mimi decades after she'd stopped drinking, so that she looked dried and cored out. When any of these hit our palates a certain way, we would cave in to the taste of our first home, savor the gusts and charred woods. Whoever of us in the car would surrender the wheel to our old Mimi, take her tumbler between our thighs, feel its warm sweat, and hover our hand above her hand clutching the stick shift, following her voice like she followed the traffic for the chance to fly around the slower cars. The four of us would forget ourselves and chant as one, seeing the hilled road arch ahead like a distant smile. Tombe, look out, tombe. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for starting us off with that beautiful reading, Melissa. That was awesome. So my name is Christina. I'm the web editor here at HFR, and I'm excited to introduce Diana Cao next. So here we go. Diana Cao is a JD candidate at Harvard Law School. She has received scholarships from summer literary seminars and the Bread Loaf Writers Conference, and was a 2021 finalist in the Boston Review's annual poetry contest. Her poetry and fiction have recently appeared or are forthcoming in Plowshares, the Georgia Review, Ecotone, and elsewhere. So please join me in welcoming Diana.
Hi, thank you, Christina. I'm so excited to be part of this issue with these amazing writers. That was so good. I thought I would start today with a short little poem. That's actually the first poem I ever wrote. I just dug it out like 10 years later during the pandemic, and it is called Glossolalia. It starts when something falls into me. A pale moth lands on the steps of the chapel in a wine-tinged shadow, mute fur trembling. I am, of course, uncomfortable. There comes a time, you say, in faith, when one allows oneself to speak in tongues. Under the light, your steady hand lifts above two ruined wings, fluttering. The next poem is a poem in 3 parts. It's called Convergence, and part 1 is called Glitch. Not quite morning, something whirs at my side, and I smack the phone, but it doesn't stop the twittering coming through the window like dial-up. My real alarm, early twilight.mp3, is an ascendancy of cricket sounds over the swamp of a dream in which the spaceship finally delivers us underwater. The twittering slams into the window. Another casualty of the bugs crawling the system, looping through a function defined as lawn care and the study of death. Part 2, Invention. Filaments pulse light across oceans so that I can watch a rocket landing through a surface purer than filtered water. Glass, a secret the ancient world once killed to keep, when purified ash transformed from something to look at into something to look through. When indivisible became individual in the frame of a mirror, and the mirror reflected our collective destiny. The flag planted in space, the cities glittering across what once was cosmically dark. The first time you looked up at the blurry borders, the light dark shapes of your mother's face and thought, mine. Part 3, Machine Learning. The first time the machine posed a question, we thought of our children. We thought curiosity, spirit, perseverance. We thought growth mindset. My mother turns to me to ask why the sky looks like rain and when her mother is coming home, not for the first time. In the grass below my window, a small pile of feathers and filaments curves into itself. we learn this final position. So both that poem and this next one were written while I was spending time at home, taking care of my mom and reckoning with her memory loss and just with being with family. So this next one is called Old Dogs Remember. You've heard the saying, the first day at home, snub-nosed and sweet, house-trained but otherwise unbroken, our rescue ignored every trick in the book. Classic commands, sit, stay, be good, I begged. But as the wisdom goes, at some point, learning comes too late. The sun sinks on the dull glare of what used to cut, bitter and sweet and just out of reach of memory. Redemption is for those who remember, and my mother slaps the glasses off my father's face, laughing, her sharp edges blunted into the barking violence of a bully. Be good holds no water when the night falls, dripping with the echo of another she can't recall. The sound of time running out sounds a lot like the word they keep asking her. Sounds like something she can almost string together. Sounds a little bit like surrender. So the next poem is the one that's going to come out in this issue of Hayden's Ferry. I realize I'm reading a lot of heavy family poems, but I think I promise I'll end on a love poem. So this one is not a love poem. This was written actually after the Atlantis bus shootings, and I was so angry at the time that I actively wanted to make something that would be hard to read for a reader. Like I wanted to make it difficult to parse. I wanted it to be hard to lay out on a page. So thank you to the editors for dealing with that. And so it's a poem in 2 columns with a narrative going back and forth across many different years. So there's also a memory theme. And then in the other alternating column, there's like a piece of propaganda or a quote from news or just a quote from literature. And I think in reading this one out loud, I'm just going to read the narrative and to make silent the other pieces, because I think those kinds of texts already have a spot in history. So I'm not as invested in giving voice to them. So this poem, which is kind of an experiment to read out loud, is called Rupture, 1969, 2021, 1984, 1996, blank. In my mother's mind, there's purpose to turning over dirt, to her body dragging across the border from Siberia, slicing wheat hungry over the limbs of the girl who trips and doesn't get up. She is tossed into the chasm. My mother is 15, eating frozen buns under a gaping sky, dreaming of Shanghai, her mother and littlest brother, crying in private. She dreams of war against bad men, the Soviets or Japanese, or so I imagine. Any chance to fill the maw of her potential. She wards off dreams, tapping on wood until it splinters inside her. Inside her, dendritic branches reach into the recesses of her mind, misfiring. It is all neurofibrillary tangle, the past flaring up into the present, symptom of disease. On her phone, my mom learns everything is rumor. Hate is racially motivated or not. Even as she loses the thread, I am trying to fill in the gaps. Who was the girl who fell in the cracked earth that slides into the present, into cracked volcanic plaque underneath my sister? My mother still remembers. Her eldest lives on an island an ocean away. Oceans away, I do not exist yet. My mother is used to losing faces, no longer young, but young enough to carry water across the Longdang. The last time she sees her father-in-law, says goodbye to her mother, brothers, uncles, aunties, neighbors, teachers. It is the last time she sees her baby brother alive. She checks her pocket for what she's forgetting. Papers, passport, 20 American dollars, the face of her small daughter getting smaller. 1 year later, my sister follows, flying alone with a plastic tea set, sticky, towards a memory of her mother. I'm getting smaller. My mother's disease makes me a child again, practicing handwriting in the back of her store, chirping in English, Video Wonderland, how can I help you? Hiding from adults so they can rent pornos, though one regular calls me China doll, says I look just like the Playboy bunny in my 3rd grade Halloween costume. Grins at my mother, tell me, do all Asians sound the same in bed? On a slow day, glass splinters over the register, just cash handed over, just 10 years away from her mother, fading alone in Shanghai. My mother alone opens 9 a.m. the next day, the memory of the gun gaping fresh in her mind. Mouths gape open in the wet market, squirming and abundant, a full fish, eel, shrimp, the smell of what's alive for now. Faces at the table, her brother and his beautiful brain without rupture, her father leaving his mysterious anger, her sons still born between me and my sister, and we're all hungry for her mother's cooking on the table, for nothing more than what we have that moment. A synapse fires, and my mother remembers she's taken us with her already, all our faces to this promise of a place so free we can do anything but disappear. Okay, and as promised, last little poem, it is a little love poem, or my version of one, and this is called Appendix. In the catalog of days, I can identify all the moments I was in love. Like day 67 of 15,809 with N, I looked at him in a cold sweat after he said, try the live octopus. And only after the tentacle squiggled into my mouth and I tasted nothing but pure predatory instinct like fear, back of the throat sour, only after I began to swallow and said, make sure you chew thoroughly or it might stick. I wanted to throttle him on day 67 and didn't. Or days 807 to 13,009, when I forgot to be embarrassed by my own vanity, sitting in the bathroom sink, peeling my nails and talking about my day. Or was that not 807 to 13,009? I thought the index for lovers, and see also love letters, first readers, pork bone soup, ended at 15,809. See regrettable behavior. But last week, something shifted in the window of our old apartment, and there it all was, still lit, still. Thank you.
I'm sorry that I didn't unmute. Thank you for whoever told me to unmute. Okay, thank you, Diana, for sharing such beautiful work with us. My name is Steffi Sin. I am the nonfiction editor here at HFR. I have the honor of introducing Tim Conrad. Okay, Tim Conrad's work has been published in journals such as Story, Quarterly West, Willow Springs, and Quarter After 8, and it has won awards from Beloit Fiction Journal and Emrys Foundation. Originally from Ohio, he currently lives in Michigan, where he teaches in the creative writing program at Michigan State University. If you can all help me welcome Tim.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to help launch this issue. And a big thank you to Susan and to Steffi and to everyone at HFR, who read and has put together this issue and put together this event. It's wonderful to be here with you. I am going to read from the essay that is coming out in issue 69, and I won't read it exactly as it's published, but I will start at the beginning, so that will save us some work contextualizing it. And I guess the thing going into it, you should know, is that it is about a cancer diagnosis that I received in the final semester of my MFA. And it's called The Far Territory. 1, I want to write to my physician assistant, I think the world of you, Grant, and all that you've done, but I don't. because he could never fulfill the role of savior, because he is a stranger and most anything I can imagine for him is sheer conjecture, because he might remember me and say something banal and terrible like, it's no problem, or I was just doing my job, because he's not Superman, because he entered the room next to mine at the urgent care and asked the patient there, ever had an STD before? At a volume I could hear and appreciate. Because before he knew I had cancer, he said, it's so good to see someone healthy. Meaning that he'd been seeing flu patients, old flu patients at that, and he was tired of their sickly ways and petty suffering. And yet, he knew enough to know what wasn't right. He was a beautiful young man, and the internet tells me that he's moved on, that he's a runner, as everyone seems to be when you Google them, that he probably has no recollection of ever meeting me. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the anecdote he tells people at parties, the why I got into this story. He's probably a man who drinks low-calorie beer and when the night gets late, a couple fingers of whiskey. And as such a party progresses and the moon rises over the intracoastal waterway and people start reaching for one another with conversation, he might say, you know, not so long ago, a young man came into the clinic and he had some pain, down here, a motion toward its genitals to a few appreciative smiles, and he didn't know what was wrong. 2, Bob, my surgeon, is nothing like my parents. They've driven down to North Carolina from Ohio without warning, afraid that if they called before they reached the halfway point, that I'd tell them to turn around and go back home. This means they call from West Virginia and with their cell phone cutting in and out in rhythm with the hills, tell me that they are on their way. When they arrive, they purchase and stock our pantry with starchy foods that I haven't eaten since I was a teenager, foods that my partner and I will still have in our cupboard months after their departure, foods that we'll have to give away when we finish graduate school and pack up to move across the country. Bob, on the other hand, is brash and cocky, but kind, the exact things you'd hope for in a surgeon. He refers to getting things in the bucket and teaches us that this is the sardonic way in which surgeons speak. He winks at my partner in a way that reflects years of practice, and when the bill comes for his services and I have no insurance or money with which to pay him, he greatly reduces his fee. 3, before all of this, when I'm not yet 20, I have a growth removed from my right breast. It will turn out to be benign, but I still have to go through all the steps. And so here I am on a gray Ohio Thursday at an imaging center getting my mammogram. I don't have much of a breast, so the nurse has to help me position myself between slabs of plastic, a metal BB taped to my nipple. This is, I think, something of an anomaly, a 19-year-old male going through all the steps of breast cancer. For years afterwards, I will have to explain myself on medical records. Yes, that's right, it was a mastectomy. Yes, they removed my right breast. And so it does not surprise me on the night of my visit to the ER when the attending physician assistant tells me, if you want to find out tonight, you can take a pregnancy test. This isn't strictly true, but it will turn out to be true for me. My partner and I go to Walgreens and buy said pregnancy test, one with a ridiculous name like Proof Positive. In the card aisle, one of our faculty's poets is browsing greeting cards, even though it's almost midnight. He doesn't recognize us this far out of context. The cashier is professional, just like everyone else. The PAs, the hospital interns, the young ultrasound technician, and doesn't comment on the test. But on top of the receipt, there's this. I'm Hope. Thank you for allowing me to serve you today. 4. Here's a game we can't play anymore. I say, I've heard that red dye in these chocolates causes cancer in lab rats. You say, whatever. I ate them all the time when I was growing up. We used to have entire holiday meals with just the red and green ones served in glass bowls with chocolate syrup and sprinkled with asbestos. I say, did you know they reuse beer bottles in China after cleaning them with formaldehyde? You say, oh, and the paint chips I ate in my youth. I laugh and I say, my mother used to clean everything, including our clothes, with less oil. You say, my father used to spray our fruit trees and garden with DDT. And look at us, I say, it never did us any harm. 5. After the cancer is removed, folks email and write to me from Ohio. My parents have told everyone what happened, but not what type of cancer I had. Testicular does not abide in a Mennonite church bulletin just below notice for next week's potluck and above a report from the stewardship committee. When some of them write, they do not use the word cancer. Instead, they refer to it as my health, my recovery, my struggle. A former grade school teacher writes to my parents, I was so sorry to hear about his problem. A man who once had cancer knows my aunt emails and abbreviates it as CA, as though using the word in its entirety might bring further suffering upon us all. 6. None of my students know of my battle. They file in on Monday, oblivious, preoccupied with their own triumphs and sorrows, believing that I've been to a conference in Chicago since the previous Wednesday. They do not ask about this conference, though. The lives of their instructors are not of particular interest to them. And so I do not have to lie. I do not have to tell them about the broom handle in my car that I've been using as a cane all weekend. During workshop, it grows painful to sit, and so I pace the room. And when I do return to my seat, I bring over a chair to prop up my foot. I'm lightly to moderately stoned on pain medication, and still no one asks questions, and still I do not have to lie. 7. When I taught in China, an American friend of mine told me how he wanted to become a physician assistant. He pitched it like it was the best of both worlds. You can practice medicine, but you won't get sued for it. He told me this while we were bowling or while we were eating at McDonald's. If we're bowling, there are Russian expats a few lanes over wearing bright short shorts and no shirts. If we're at McDonald's, there are dozens of Chinese school children all wearing billowing uniforms that look like they're years away from fitting. I'll let you choose. But what's important, I'd never heard of a PA. I rarely went to the doctor, and even though my friend went on to work in sales at a small Chicago company that gave its employees complimentary iPhones, I still think of him whenever I meet a new PA, which it so happens is getting to be pretty often. In all that I've read, I've never seen it suggested that one consult your physician assistant. Once in a while, it's a medical professional, but to anyone writing copy, I'm sure it doesn't hold the appeal and patriarchal air of talk to your doctor. 8, possible cause. In China, my apartment is across the street from a large power plant, smokestacks belching smoke at all hours of the day. Online, I find pictures of acid rain droplets on cars parked at my school. Possible cause. Upon arriving in the country, we are told not to drink the water. Halfway through my year there, I'm told that this is because of hard metals in the water, which are often not removed by unregulated bottling operations. I've never taken it seriously. Most of the year, I make coffee with water straight from the tap. Possible cause. The air pollution in Shenzhen, of course, is of course notorious. Sorry. In addition to the power plant, oftentimes trucks moving containers to and from the nearby port back up and idle beneath my window. Their horns and exhaust invade my apartment nightly. 9. 38% of US Americans will at some point be diagnosed with some form of cancer. 64% of them will live for more than 5 years. Diagnostic innovation continues, even as survival rates sometimes remain the same. Unable to sleep one night, I read about how a skew occurs. Previously, they might have caught your cancer at 55, and you lived for another 5 years. Now, with better screening but no improved treatment options, they might find it at 50 and you might live until 60, same as before. The difference is that for an extra 5 years, you spend your days living as someone who has cancer. 10. My father, sorry, one more drink of water. My father, who briefly had cancer, and my mother joined us for a weekend up north, as they say in the state where we now live. His dermatologist has prescribed for his basal cell carcinoma something that he refers to as chemotherapy in a jar. When applied daily, his face blisters with angry boils. Our 3-year-old daughter is not fond of it largely because no one warned her this would be the state of things. Should it be like that, I finally ask him. We watch football and I watch him rub and pick at the skin from his chemical burn. It's supposed to reset everything, my father says. 11. When I go to the hospital for my outpatient surgery, my professor who once had cancer jokingly tells me she will be upset if they give me a gift bag, something they apparently do for breast and prostate and other popular cancers. In light of this, I think maybe there will be a yellow bracelet. There's not. This is before Lance Armstrong, a cyclist who once had cancer, fell from grace, back when people would acknowledge my cancer by saying, "Oh, right, like what Lance Armstrong had." Now we all know Lance had a lot of things and he's since lost many of them. A coworker who doesn't know my medical past says, Lance got cancer because he did steroids, a clean and cheerful twist of cause and effect. We are at work, standing inside his truck. I say, I don't know if you can say that. He says, no, I think I can. Well, possible cause. I've spent numerous working hours driving old diesel trucks, which are continually left running. Possible cause. In my early teenage years, I worked at a golf course, which kept its non-native grasses alive and mowable through a diabolic regimen of fungicide, insecticide, and fertilizer. A professional golfer who lost his father to cancer was told his father developed cancer from licking golf balls, something he ostensibly did for luck. Possible cause. I did all the wrong things for luck, and it seldom occurred to me I needed to be preventing anything. Possible cause. I've eaten, over the years and against my better judgment, too many Little Debbie snack cakes. 13. A boss who once had cancer spoke of someone who had cancer. She said, but you know what? She's never felt sorry for herself. Even though this is the same boss who hollers, oh, shut up, across the room with the ringing phone and castigates anyone who folds towels incorrectly, I still have some trouble not accepting her authority on how one should behave. When does reflection become too much, become self-pity, or is this a line we need professional help to understand? I do not come from a culture that values that sort of thing. When I'm diagnosed, I tell the chair of the department, I'm an MFA student who teaches 2 classes, so he is my de facto boss, and I was raised to believe that work is next to godliness. I do not want to disappear even for a day without telling the powers that be, so I tell him in the 2-day fugue state between diagnosis and surgery. The chair is kind and patriarchal, a man who writes about men and history and how to write about men and history. I can tell he's shaken by the news. He says that I can, of course, have all the time I need. Then he says, please make sure you talk to someone about this. 14, possible cause. A friend once proclaimed, people who listen to country music deserve to get cancer. In my delivery truck and on cross-country road trips, I have sometimes tuned in. Possible cause. I never thought I could not or would not or should not get cancer, and so I did. 15, like a tuberculosis patient of old, I go west to convalesce, and why not? I finished a degree that I had no business finishing given the circumstances, and now the rest of my life looms in front of me, just as the community around me is evaporating. Why not go somewhere bigger and sunnier? There's a tradition where I come from of deferring it all, but suddenly life seems to hold fewer guarantees. I tell my partner, I'm not sure we're done with this. And although I'm not referring to the surveillance care that will cripple our bank account for years, I realize now, even as I write this, that it's the truth. That first summer, we live in a research camp on the plateau north of the Grand Canyon and work for a bird project. We live in an old cabin and spend our days traversing the woods with topo maps and bullhorns. We see marvelous things. On days off, we leave the green of the plateau and drop into Slick Rock. The sign as we enter Utah tells us the region is the greatest earth on show. We visit Zion, Bryce, Escalante. We eat pizza on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, watching a thunderstorm work its way toward us across the abyss. We hike one day through a slot canyon down to the Colorado River. My partner does yoga against a backdrop of impossibly balanced boulders and a handstand framed by an immense drain culvert. The sun is unadulterated, the earth brownish red, and we are the only creatures upon it. As we dip in the cold river, I think, perhaps this will heal me. Thank you all so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sue, and I'm the poetry editor at HFR. I have the honor of introducing our last reader for this evening, Sanna Wani. Sanna Wani is the author of My Grief, the Sun, out with House of Anansi Press 2022. Her poems and essays have been published in Poem a Day, Brick, and the Best Canadian Poetry 2020. She writes a monthly newsletter called Booklights. She loves daisies. Please join me in welcoming Sanna.
Hi, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here, and thank you, Tim and Diana and Melissa, for such a beautiful, beautiful readings to just be witness to. I'm gonna read to you from my book, My Grief the Sun, and a couple of other poems I've just been liking lately, and maybe they're related. And I'll start with Meditation after Aisha Sasha John. Today I drew a heart between my left middle and index finger. I drew a star between the middle and the ring, and then I remembered I have a vein in that finger that goes directly to my heart. Is there any part of me that doesn't go directly to my heart? My jaw is aching. A friend I haven't spoken to in years says, soften your jaw. That yoga video I watch on really bad days, soften your gaze. Or did I get them mixed up again? Inside my head, there's a big, big ocean. Gentle is where the water is ankle high and warm. where the water is warm even when the sun disappears and the sun disappears. Often I find softness is a moon in my mouth melting. The eyes of the kitten I wait for each morning are amber. I wait with milk and bones. I kneel. I put whatever is in my hands on the ground, and whatever is alive nestles between my feet. My heart breaks. Once someone touched my jaw so softly I cried. Once someone held my hand so lightly I wept. Oh, light, what are you doing here? How did you get inside this poem? Listen, light. Once I put an egg in the mouth of a golden retriever. His fur glowed warm in the sun. Cesium is the softest of all metals, not gold. If I put a stone in my mouth, will it melt? Gold is not poison. A river is not alive, but is soft. The rock it touches, too. River is my word for vein. Rock for what I offer you, like this poem. And the next one that I'll read is the poem that is in the issue. It's called Between Spring Equinox and Summer Solstice Tonight. And it's after Emily Jungmin Yoon. So I thought I might actually read the poem that it's after before I read the poem, which is titled Between Autumn Equinox and Winter Solstice Today. Mine is tonight, today. I read a Korean poem with the line, "Today you are the youngest you will ever be. Today I am the oldest I have been. Today we drink buckwheat tea. Today I have heat in my apartment. Today I think about the word chada in Korean. It means cold. It means to be filled with. It means to kick, to wear. Today we're worn. Today you wear the cold, your chilled skin. My heart kicks on my skin. Someone said winter has broken his windows. The heat inside and the cold outside sent lightning across glass. Today my heart wears you like curtains. Today it fills with you. The window in my room is full of leaves ready to fall. Chada, you say. It's tea. We drink. It is cold outside. Her collection, what is it called? A Cruelty Special to Our Species, is so, so beautiful. If you haven't read it, I really, really recommend it. And then my poem is called Between Spring Equinox and Summer Solstice Tonight. I read a Shahid poem with the line, "The world is full of paper, and I am writing. Tonight I have been. Tonight I have enough paper for 3 letters and no ink. I think about the word Bahar in Urdu. It means heavy. It means outside. It means to carry, to pride. Tonight we carry paper. Tonight we stack the hours word by word. The full face of the moon as open as the page. Someone says Ishmael and your books whisper with light. My wrist as loose as the door. My wrist the canon of a song. Bahar I write. It's spring. We sleep. It's warm outside. And then I think I'll read the next poem, which is for my friend Max, who's also in Arizona, which is a beautiful place that I hope I can visit someday. And it's called Pendulum. Yes, we are ringed by funny light. No, the flowers are not timid. Yes, our halos can sing. No, our longing is not bothered. Yes, our hands are a cure. No, we don't untangle what we speak. Yes, there is a horizon to my desire. No, I am not a sun. Yes, our grief melts. No, it does not sour. Yes, a dream can fly. No, it will not wait for anyone. Yes, we sigh in unison. No, the birds are not listening. Yes, someone is singing. No, I am not the song. I think I will read one more, which is this poem that has been on my mind lately, which is called Who is the Sun Asking for Sleep? And the title of the book is My Grief's the Sun. So there's this like sort of like cascade conversation about grief and sun and sleep that I think began with this poem. This is the earliest of that cascading. Who is the sun asking for sleep or just cold air? I know there was a time I chose not to speak for 4 days, and my voice felt like a heavy roach after. Part of having a body means whatever can be felt can be forgotten. Forgetting is like sleep, like water, heavy, wet brain, clear, swollen dreams. It is some kind of relief, I guess, that whatever I am will be gone one day. I know several names for several types of wind: mistral and monsoon, bodies in resonance or inflammation, but I don't pretend to understand how wind works. I know I can feel it on my face. I know I will forget. So I continue running, waiting, opening all the windows. In the mornings, I am not this harsh, but grief compels me, maybe even more than sleep. I am waiting for something to last. I know nothing well, but I am waiting for mornings that do not end, or maybe they do, but end is not the right word at all. I would call these mornings Georgic or fraying, the spinning, the earth breathing. Every 4 days, I learn how to speak again. I remember the spin is slowing, the days growing longer. The days growing longer. And then I'm going to close off with a poem that I have been loving lately called Daisies by Mary Oliver. And I love Mary Oliver. And I didn't know that she had a poem called Daisies. And I love daisies. So I'm just going to read this for you all. It's from Devotions also, which is just a classic. It is possible, I suppose, that sometime we will learn everything there is to learn. What the world is, for example, and what it means. I think this as I am crossing from one field to another in summer, and the mockingbird is mocking me as one who either knows enough already or knows enough to be perfectly content not knowing. Song being born of quest, he knows this. He must turn silent, were he suddenly assaulted with answers. Instead, oh, hear his wild, caustic, tender warbling ceaselessly unanswered. At my feet, the white-petaled daisies display the small suns of their centerpiece, their, if you don't mind me saying so, their hearts. Of course, I could be wrong. Perhaps their hearts are pale and narrow and hidden in the roots. What do I know? But this, it is heaven itself to take what is given, to see what is plain, what the sun lights up willingly, for example. I think this as I reach down, not to pick, but merely to touch, the suitability of the field for the daisies, and the daisies for the field. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. That was wonderful. So wonderful. Thank you all. Melissa, Diana, Tim, and Sanna. Your readings were incredible, and it's such a privilege to sit in your work and the wonder of it. And such a privilege to be part of this community. I have loved my time at HFR, and it's just like we are repeatedly astounded by the work that we receive and that we get to celebrate. So this is just such an honor, such a privilege to celebrate all of you. Thank you all. Thank you to our genre editors who did intros, for our wonderful readers. Thank you to our audience for being so celebratory and lighting up the chat for all of these wonderful writers. We really appreciate your attendance. And thank you to Susan, our wonderful senior editor, for handling all of our tech always. Yeah, it's been a wonderful night. You will be able to access this recording in a day or two. So if you'd like to look back on it, it will be there for you. Please order a copy of HFR issue 69. It is available for pre-order and will be out in the world very shortly, probably in the next week. And you can read all of these wonderful writers. Yeah, thank you all so much, and have a great Wednesday evening.